Everything's okay there.
Oh yeah,
We'd like
I just drove by. Sorry.
All right. And another submission from online here comes to us from Mike Pankow from Windy City Slam. And Mike's question is, with Revolution coming up in Chicago, can you get into the city's love affair with wrestling? And can you talk a little bit about AEW's relationship with the Chicago area?
I mean, it's all right there as far as Chicago was the first place that me, Matt, and Nick, with All In, wanted to, we wanted the best chance to succeed, and we thought Chicago would be the city for it. And we technically weren't even in Chicago, as we were in Hoffman Estates in Schaumburg with the Sears Center. But Chicago is much bigger than that one area, which is why with Revolution coming up and Wintrust being the home for that one and sold out for that show, there's something really unique about Chicago. And Chicago, I think people think it's always been like this in wrestling, and it hasn't always been the hottest bed for wrestling. Just historically, if you look at it, I'm not sure where it started. I'm not sure if it started with the WrestleMania that they did at Allstate, where especially the crowd level of involvement shifted from, it became, they have their own identity, a Chicago crowd. Just like Philly's wrestling crowd has always had its own identity, Chicago all of a sudden has its own identity as a crowd, which is so fun as a competitor or a performer. But you can never, I'm one of the most loyal people on earth. If anything, that's, for all my, bad traits, my best trait is I'm incredibly loyal to a fault, and I'm going to be loyal to Chicago throughout the entire future of you, because that was the place we got things started. It really was. It's a spark for something that people still are arguing isn't real in terms of how popular wrestling is across the globe, which means that Chicago is always going to have our flag in the sand, and I hope we can give Chicago the best possible shows.
Thanks, Cody. Next is, we're going to open the line here for Joe Anthony Myrick from Fansided. Joe Anthony?
Hey there, Cody. How you doing?
Good. How are you, my friend?
I'm wonderful, wonderful. So last summer, Tony Khan said that he was committed to signing more men of color for the singles division. And seeing as this is 2020 now, is this still a priority for AEW, signing more people of color for the men's single division?
Of course. Of course. I'm glad you asked. I'm literally, as not to say that I was multitasking, but at the same time we're all talking, I've been taking a deep dive on the old YouTube into a guy named Chris Bay, who's a prime example of somebody that potentially could be good to our singles division. And we haven't spoke to him or anything of that nature, so I'm sure this call will cause some sort of, he'll hear about it in some capacity. But yeah, Tony's commitment is the same as my commitment, Matt and Nick's commitment, as far as 100%. It's a demographic that we do well in, but we should be doing much better. And really, I'm dead serious. None of us are pretending when we say we want the show to be congruent with what America really looks like in 2020 and moving forward. So that would mean more people like Scorpio Sky, for example, more women like Big Swole, more tag teams like Private Party. So yes, for sure. And we're looking at somebody as we speak. So it's funny that you asked when you asked, but yes, that commitment is still our commitment.
Next up, I'd like to introduce Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful. Sean Ross?
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Cody. You had spoken a little bit about All In earlier, and I think a lot of people know that Ring of Honor have the rights to that show. Is that something that you guys are still actively trying to acquire, or have you all kind of just let that pass for now?
I think we have such a good relationship as far as, when I say we, I say me, Matt, and Nick with Joe Koff and Greg at Ring of Honor. Originally it's a kind of complicated set of documents that tie All In to to ROH, but they did so much to help with All In. I mean, they did a significant amount to help with All In, from loaning us Gary Jester, or helping us handle back of house arrangements. The fact that they let us breach contract to do it, they're a huge part of it. But I don't think it's something we're actively currently. We talk about it every now and then. It's a really. I don't want to sound just super romantic because it'll also sound naive, but I was there, man. I lived it. I felt that in my heart, that building, that moment. The businessman in me kind of forgets that we probably should get our hands on it, just because it's still so fresh and such a great thing that happened for wrestling. And I know that if we came to the table with Greg and Joe, we would be the first person, if they ever thought about unloading some things, we would be the first people they would talk to, because they're men of their word, as are we. And that would be a nice conversation to have. But right now, it's just something we've let pass. We've been so focused on AEW and creating new All-Ins as we go. And the name All-In doesn't belong to ROH. The name All-In belongs to Killing the Business, which is, Matt and Nick and Dana Massey. So who knows? Really, it's a good question. But who knows what the future holds with that?
Thanks, Cody and Sean Ross. And now I'd like to turn it over to Richard Fan from Pro Wrestling Torch. Richard, are you there?
I am, thank you. Cody, my question, I see a listener from fans, or a reporter from Fansided asked about representation, but you had mentioned earlier the idea of woke points and how to avoid that trap. How do you all as a company avoid being so diverse, trying to provide for so many people while also facing some of that criticism, fairly or unfairly, that you're doing this to be in the spotlight for doing it rather than doing it for its own sake?
Well, I think you just have to lead with your content. And your content is what speaks to who you are as a company. Who's out there front and center on Dynamite versus making it a big marketing campaign. I mean, there's plenty of things that you can create a marketing campaign around that still do mean goodwill, and that there's nothing nefarious in that. But I just think you have to lead with your content. I think most viewers, I mentioned we have the youngest wrestling audience in all of the top 20 new cable series that we were lucky enough to fall into. I think most viewers are smart enough to smell when something is being done to check a box and for a publicity's sake versus just leading with your content. That's why you don't see that many statements made by the EVPs or Tony every week after a show, because who we really are shows on Dynamite. And that's how I think you avoid making it all some PR shill versus, no, this was the best call because these are the best wrestlers and this is the best show.
Thanks, Cody. Next up is Ryan Satin from Collider. Ryan?
Doesn't sound like Ryan.
Hey, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, there you are.
I figured it out. Hey, what's up, Cody?
A hot mess, Ryan Satin, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm not used to doing this on the computer. I'm still old school, usually doing it on my phone. So I know you talked a little bit about Nyla Rose here, but what did you think about Val Venus and some of the criticism that he was throwing your guys' way for putting the women's title on Nyla Rose?
I think it's just disappointing. If you're somebody that perhaps grew up liking Val Venus, I don't know. He was kind of like the Disco Inferno of WWE. I don't know if anyone really knows who Val Venus is anymore, but it's disappointing because I don't think he actually means the terrible, awful things he's putting in writing. I think he's just trying to get a booking, and we're not booking Val Venus, and you're not going to be booked anywhere near us. And it kind of goes to the last question as far as that's why, if you guys online, so many of you have an online presence who are on this call. The real way to end some of this bigotry and transphobia and this negativity is don't hit the ball back. Don't stop. We all know who we're talking about here. That the same people who do this when we hit the ball back, you give them oxygen. And I'm not giving Val Venus any oxygen when it comes to Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose won the Women's World Championship because she was the best woman. She was the best woman at AEW, and that's just it. So yeah, I think we should all, if we take anything from this call, to stop hitting the ball back to those people, because it's just, man, think about it. It's 2020. You know, everybody should love everybody. You know what I'm saying? In some capacity. I know that sounds super hippie of me, but it's just how I feel today.
Thanks, Cody. Next up is Zach McGibbon from TSN in Canada. Zach? Zach?
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Oh, there you go. Figuring this out as well. I got a two-part question here. First part, specifically about Canada. I was wondering if there's going to be any AEW events coming to Canada in 2020. And second question, sticking with Canada, how has the television been in Canada for you guys? Are you impressed with the ratings that are coming in for Dynamite on TSN?
TSN's been an incredible partner, and they really let us lead, and they plug in for us and stream us across, you know, our border there to the north. I for sure would hope we're coming to Canada. I mean, when I think Canada and wrestling, I've had some wonderful memories in the Bell Center there in Montreal. In wonderful memories. I know it's not Rico anymore, but Rico, and then the ACC, and then Northwestern, you know, over there in the Vancouver and the Victoria, and even Abbotsford. Oh man, you can never go wrong in Abbotsford. So I would hope there's a strong presence in 2020. I know it's definitely something that we're talking about. It's not something that is off the table. I would hope there's a strong presence for Canada in 2020 as far as an actual live show. I think the first one, you know, and I could be totally wrong, so don't get mad at me if you live there and I screw this up, but I think the first one will very likely be Toronto. But I'm a big fan of the Pacific Northwest as well, because I've done Abbotsford and then Victoria and Vancouver, and they're wonderful places, and I would just love our roster to be able to go and perform in that, you know, that part of the world. So I can see 2020 having multiple Canada shows. I'm gonna, as soon as I get to the building tonight, get yelled at for saying that, because we don't currently have them on the books, but we have discussed them. So, and our schedule as far as the live event buildings is not entirely mapped out. I would hope Canada. I have a great love for it as far as the type of fan they are. Plus, you know, Chris Jericho being from Winnipeg, you can't miss there.
Thanks, Cody. Well, we are almost to our 45-minute time limit. With that, we have time for one more question. I'd like to take it from Stephanie Franchome from Steel Chair Magazine. Steph, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Hi, Cody. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We are trying to deal with a storm in France, so it's pretty strange.
What?
So the wind is crazy, and yeah, but everything is okay. So now AEW is pretty much 30 months pretty plumpy baby, and it's going pretty good. Over the last 13 months, what are the things that you are the most proud of about AEW, and also is there one thing you have a regret? You regret to do? You regret you did it, or you regret not having done it yet? And I thank you very much.
Great question. The thing I think I'm most proud of is no one here at AEW is taking any type of victory laps. We have our Wednesday show Thursday at 4 o'clock or a little earlier. You know, when the ratings come out and when the feedback comes in, or even the live feedback there in the building that night, it's instantly right back to what do we do next week as far as, you know, what we have mapped out long form, but also how do we shake it up. It's just a really kind of friendly and energetic and passionate environment of people who have come to AEW, and the more people who speak out, who work for us, from the luminary, legendary figures to the younger roster, the more you'll hear that is about how everybody really is excited to get there Tuesday night, Wednesday, do the show, and nobody wants to leave. That passion is, you can't put a price on it. So I'm very proud that exists within the company. I'm proud we don't get ahead of ourselves. We're working very disciplined, and we want to make this right for every wrestling fan and create all new wrestling fans. I don't think I have a single regret about this. And I'm one of those who does have regrets. You'll never hear me say no regrets, but in this case, I don't have any regrets about AEW. It's gone so well, and people who have come to the events, they can feel that from me and the other performers in the ring. So no regrets. I'm very proud of everything, and I'm very proud of where everything is going. Thank you.
Thanks, Cody, and really thanks to everyone who joined us here on the call today. And we're unfortunately at the end of our time, but on behalf of everybody, Cody certainly, but also everybody at AEW, we want to thank you for everything you've been doing on behalf of wrestling and certainly AEW over the past year plus, for your attention, your time, and your support. So with that, we're gonna close the call. We will be distributing an audio copy shortly, so be on the lookout for that. Then we'll see you tomorrow night on AEW Dynamite, and then look forward to seeing many of you in Chicago in a week's time or so. So thanks again, and appreciate your time.